Do the Amish vote? Now, this is a question that comes up every 2 to 4 years pretty regularly. Part of this has to do with Pennsylvania and Ohio. These are two of the political swing states. They're also the two states with the largest Amish populations. Political operatives have viewed the Amish as a source of potential votes. So generally, the Amish do not vote, certainly not in the numbers that non-Amish Americans vote in. However, there are some Amish who do vote. I'm going to explain why most Amish do not vote, describe a few efforts that have been made to get Amish to vote, and how those turned out. Also, which type of person is more likely to vote among the Amish? And what political party do they tend to vote for? So why don't Amish generally vote? So like a lot of things, this is going to vary by the community. You're going to see in some communities, a minority of Amish do vote. By minority, I mean 10% or less. So much less than the 60% typical turnout that you see among non-Amish Americans. And in some communities, virtually no Amish are going to vote. So why don't Amish vote in the same numbers that non-Amish do? Well, this is really rooted in the concept of two kingdoms, or two kingdoms theology. So in a nutshell, Amish believe there are two kingdoms. There's God's kingdom, a heavenly kingdom, and man's kingdom. Now, Amish are most concerned with the laws and rules of God's kingdom in general, right? That's where they want to end up. That doesn't mean they disrespect the rules of man's kingdom. They feel they should generally respect the laws. Amish, on the whole, are quite law-abiding, but they also feel they should keep their distance from quote-unquote the world. And voting is something that ties Amish closer into the world, into man's kingdom. Another key principle here is that a lot of Amish believe that voting for candidates that might use force would violate their principles of non-resistance, which is a belief of the Amish that they should not use force against other people. This is why Amish do not serve in the military. This is why they don't, serve in police forces. This is why they traditionally do not initiate lawsuits, because that's viewed as a form of legal force. This is also why they don't run for or hold political office. So this general principle kind of governs Amish behavior when it comes to voting as well. Now, the Amish are not a uniform body. They're individuals, so some individuals have a different stance on that. In some of the communities, especially the larger, more progressive communities, some of the more business-oriented communities, you're going to see Amish who feel that it's okay to vote. And there have definitely been some exceptions or special cases. One of the most noteworthy ones was in the 2004 election, George Bush versus John Kerry. If you look at the example of Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, you had a case where there was a local political operative who had ties to the Amish, actually had been born into an Amish family, and was part of efforts to get the Amish to vote in that election for George Bush. Traditionally, the Amish tend to, when they do vote Republican, overwhelmingly Republican. That's because the Amish align more with the conservative values, the view that the party is more of a faith-oriented party. Things like smaller government, lower taxes, these kind of traditional ideas of the Republican Party, these are all things that appeal to the Amish. In a study on this election by Donald Crable and Kyle Kopko, they wrote that some old orders occasionally joked that even if they did not vote Republican, they prayed Republican. In the book An Amish Paradox, the authors noted that an old order Amishman used to joke that he could count the Amish who supported Democrats on one hand. So that kind of sums it up. So there were a lot of efforts done to kind of rally support among the Amish in that election in Lancaster County in particular. Bush, as a candidate, actually visited Lancaster County on a number of occasions and even met with Amish people there. So the upshot there was that in the end, you only had about 13% of the Amish adult population voting there. So I would say that would be higher than what you'd expect in a typical election, but not anything approaching the numbers that you'd see among the non-Amish. Another more recent example was the Amish PAC. This came about in 2016 to try to similarly rally support for candidate Donald Trump. This effort used outreach such as advertisements in publications read by the Amish, billboards, things like that, in order to try to encourage the vote for Donald Trump. This was active in 2016, in 2018, in the midterms, and again in 2020. Trump actually had a number of Amish business people visit the White House in late 2019 from Pennsylvania and from Ohio, perhaps as a part of this attempt to appeal to them in the upcoming election. I was actually in touch with one of the Amishmen who went there, who was quite enthusiastic about the visit. A study by Kyle Kopko suggests that the Amish PAC had only a minimal impact in the 2016 election. Although he said the Amish PAC certainly didn't hurt. And that comes to the question, when they do vote, who typically votes among the Amish? Now, in the majority of cases, it's men, and they tend to be often younger men involved in business. They would generally be in the more progressive, larger communities. So in terms of this upcoming election, I don't know if you're going to have the same turnout. I don't know if they'd expect to have the same results. Now, if there's an issue of local interest, like zoning issues, for example, they're going to be maybe more likely to vote in those types of elections than in the larger national ones. Amish people read the newspaper. Some keep up with politics. They may also hear, for example, talk radio when they are traveling in a car driven by a non-Amish driver or employee. That's a chance where they discuss politics, hear the news, hear the opinions of their non-Amish co-workers or drivers. So in a nutshell, the Amish generally do not vote. Although especially when it comes to presidential politics, their large and growing presence in two of the most important swing states, I think will continue to entice attempts to, get out the Amish vote in future elections. But I don't expect that you're going to see much dramatic change when it comes to what potential percentage of Amish will actually vote. Although you're going to have a larger and a larger potential voter population among the Amish in those states due to the very high Amish growth rate. So I hope that explains that. If you found this video useful, hit the like button for me. I appreciate that. Hit the subscribe button if you'd like to get more videos like this, and I will talk to you next time.